The alarm systems across the Calthex Imperial defense grid started screaming all at once. Every sensor, every monitoring station, every automated watch point lit up with the same warning. Something was coming. Something big. Junior Technician Morvik stared at his screens in the outer rim monitoring station. His 3 eyes blinked in sequence, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The readings made no sense. The energy signature coming toward them was impossible. It had to be a glitch. He ran the diagnostic check 3 times. Each time the results came back the same. "Commander," Morvik called out, his voice shaking slightly. "We have an unidentified contact. It's moving fast. Really fast." Commander Thelvax walked over to the junior technician's station. She had served in the Imperial Navy for 30 cycles. She had seen pirates, rebels, and rival Empire fleets. Nothing ever rattled her. She glanced at the screen and her confidence wavered for just a moment. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "A single ship, Commander. But the power readings, they're higher than an entire battle fleet. The computer keeps flagging it as an error, but it's real. It's definitely real." Thelvax pulled up the data on her own terminal. The ship was approaching at speeds that should have torn any normal vessel apart. The energy output suggested weapon systems that could crack planets, and it was heading straight for Imperial space. "Straight for the core worlds. Send a hail," Thelvax ordered. "All standard frequencies. Identify yourself, state your purpose, all the usual protocols." The communications officer sent the transmission. They waited. Seconds turned into minutes. No response. The ship kept coming, maintaining its course with perfect precision. It ignored every attempt at contact. "Try again," Thelvax said. "Every language in the database. Emergency frequencies, everything. Still nothing." The mysterious vessel continued its approach, cutting through space like a knife through water. Thelvax felt a cold sensation in her chest. In all her years of service, she had never seen anything like this. Ships always responded. Always. Even hostile forces would at least acknowledge contact, if only to issue threats or demands. "Get me Admiral Vexthar," she ordered. "Priority channel. Right now." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the imposing figure of Admiral Vexthar. The Admiral was a veteran of the expansion wars, a military genius who had crushed rebellions across a dozen systems. His scales were marked with battle scars, and his reputation was built on ruthless efficiency. He looked annoyed at being disturbed. "This better be important, Commander," Vexthar growled. "Sir, we have an unidentified vessel approaching Imperial space. It's not responding to any communications. The energy readings are unprecedented." Vexthar's expression didn't change. "One ship?" "Yes, sir." "But the readings suggest—" "One ship," Vexthar repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. "We are the Calthex Empire. We have fleets that number in the thousands. We control 50 star systems. And you're worried about one ship? Sir, with respect, the power signature is unlike anything in our database. It's putting out more energy than our entire 3rd Fleet combined." Vexthar waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Sensors malfunction all the time. It's probably a merchant vessel with faulty identification transponders. If it enters our space without authorization, destroy it. Send a patrol squadron if it makes you feel better." Vexthar out, the hologram vanished. Thelvax stood there for a moment, frustration and concern warring inside her. The Admiral didn't understand. This wasn't a normal situation, but orders were orders. "Dispatch Patrol Squadron 7, she ordered. "Tell them to intercept and identify. Rules of engagement are defensive only unless fired upon. I want constant updates." 20 minutes later, the situation changed completely. The mysterious ship sent a transmission, not a response to their hails. A broadcast, powerful enough that every receiver in the sector picked it up. The message was in Galactic Common, but the accent was strange. The grammar broken in places. The voice that came through the speakers was human, female, cold. Each word was measured and deliberate. "This is Captain Maria, Chen of the Terran Union Expeditionary Corps Warship Retribution. 6 cycles ago, Imperial forces destroyed the colony on New Eden. 12,000 civilians dead. Men, women, and children? Your Admiral Krevshan gave the order. Your Emperor Zalthor sanctioned it. You have 6 cycles to surrender those responsible for this war crime. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of intent. Comply or face the consequences. You will not receive another warning." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent. Every officer present stared at their stations in shock. Terran? Morvik whispered. As in humans. But they're extinct. Everyone knows that. Thelvax's mind raced. Humans. She had heard the stories as a child. Ancient legends about a species that once explored the galaxy. The tales varied wildly. Some said they were peaceful explorers who vanished mysteriously. Others claimed they were warriors who had fought in some great war and lost. Most scholars dismissed humans as myth or exaggeration. But New Eden? Thelvax remembered the incident. 6 cycles ago, Imperial forces had been chasing rebel fighters. They traced them to a small, insignificant colony world on the edge of known space. Admiral Krevshan had decided the most efficient solution was to bombard the entire planet from orbit. Kill the rebels and anyone helping them. The colony was wiped out in less than an hour. The Emperor had signed off on it without a second thought. Just another minor operation in the endless business of empire. No one had bothered to check who actually lived there. It was just listed as an unregistered colony. Probably smugglers or criminals, the report had said. No one important, apparently someone very important had lived there. Get me the Admiral again, Thelvax ordered. Now. And pull up everything we have on New Eden. Every scan, every report, everything. When Vexthar's hologram appeared again, his expression had changed. He had heard the transmission too. For the first time since Thelvax had known him, the Admiral looked uncertain. Humans, he said slowly. They're supposed to be gone. This one doesn't seem very gone, sir, Thelvax replied. What are your orders? Vexithar's face hardened. The uncertainty vanished, replaced by the cold confidence that had won him so many battles. We don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't surrender our own officers to foreign powers. And we certainly don't take orders from extinct species. Alert all defensive fleets. If this retribution crosses into Imperial space, we destroy it. Full mobilization. I want 3 battle groups at the border within the cycle. Sir, the power readings suggest... I don't care what your sensors say, Commander. It's one ship. We have hundreds. The might of the Calthex Empire is not threatened by a single vessel. Regardless of its origin, we will crush it and we will send a message to anyone else who thinks they can threaten us. Prepare for combat operations. That is all. The transmission ended. Thelvax looked at her crew. She saw fear in their eyes. Good, fear kept you alert. Fear kept you alive. But she also saw something else. Doubt. The kind of doubt that could break a crew. Listen to me, she said, her voice firm and clear. We are the Imperial Defense Force. We have the best ships, the best weapons, and the best training in the galaxy. Whatever this human ship is, it's still just one ship. We have thousands. The Admiral is right. Numbers win wars. Now everyone to their stations. Execute the mobilization order, and someone get me every piece of intelligence we have on ancient human technology. The crew moved with renewed purpose. Thelvax watched the main display as Imperial warships began to converge on the border. Massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of leveling cities. Fast attack cruisers with enough firepower to shred smaller vessels in seconds. Support carriers loaded with fighter craft. Within hours, over 200 Imperial warships had taken up defensive positions. It was an impressive sight. Thelvax had fought in enough battles to know that this kind of firepower could stop almost any threat. Almost. The intelligence reports came back. Ancient human technology was mostly legend and speculation. What little evidence existed suggested humans had been technologically advanced, possibly on par with the current galactic powers. But that was thousands of years ago if the legends were even true. Technology degraded, knowledge was lost. Even if humans had survived somewhere, they couldn't possibly have maintained their capabilities, could they? Thelvax pulled up the sensor data again. The retribution was still coming. It hadn't slowed down. It hadn't changed course. It hadn't done anything except maintain its steady, relentless approach toward the heart of the Empire. 6 cycles until it reached Imperial space. 6 cycles until they would find out if the legends were true. On the bridge of the retribution, Captain Maria Chen stood before the main view screen. Behind her, her crew worked in focused silence. Every person on this ship had lost someone on New Eden. Every single one. This wasn't just a military mission. This was personal. Chen's reflection stared back at her from the darkened screen. She looked tired. She felt tired. But she couldn't stop now. Wouldn't stop. Her daughter had been on New Eden. Sarah. Bright, curious, full of life. She had chosen to join the colonial service to help build something new on the frontier. Chen had been so proud of her. Now Sarah was gone, vaporized along with 12,000 others because some alien admiral had decided their lives didn't matter. Because an alien emperor had signed off on genocide without a second thought. Captain, her executive officer said quietly. We're detecting fleet movements. They're mobilizing. How many ships? Chen asked. 200 and counting. 3 battle groups. They're setting up a defensive line. Chen nodded slowly. They're not going to comply. They're going to fight. So it would seem, ma'am. Good, Chen said softly. I was hoping they would. Her XO looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, those are significant forces. 200 warships. Even with our advantages, Chen turned to face him. Her eyes were cold hard. Commander, we gave them a chance. We warned them. We offered them a way out. They chose this. And now they're going to learn what happens when you murder 12,000 humans and think there won't be consequences. She looked around at her crew, men and women from a dozen different human worlds. Engineers, weapons specialists, pilots. All volunteers. All willing to risk everything for justice. This empire has spent centuries pushing around smaller civilizations, Chen continued. Taking what they want. Destroying what they don't. They did it because no one could stop them. No one was strong enough. But we are. Humanity spent the last 1,000 years preparing for this moment. We watched. We learned, we built, and now we're ready. She activated the ship-wide communications. Her voice echoed through every corridor, every cabin, every station on the Retribution. This is the captain. In 6 cycles, we will engage Imperial forces. They outnumber us. They think that matters. They're wrong. What matters is that we're right. What matters is that we're fighting for our families, our friends, our fellow humans. What matters is that we're showing the galaxy that humanity protects its own. No matter the cost, no matter the odds, we will have justice for New Eden. All hands battle stations. Chen out. The Retribution continued its approach. Behind the scenes, thousands of automated systems ran final checks. Weapons charged. Shields calibrated. Engines hummed with barely contained power. The ship was ready. The crew was ready. In 6 cycles, the Calthex Empire would learn that some prey bites back. The Vorgash Nebula was a massive cloud of gas and dust that stretched across several light years. It was beautiful in its own way, with swirling colors that ranged from deep purple to bright orange. It was also the perfect place for an ambush. The nebula interfered with sensors, made long-range targeting difficult, and provided plenty of hiding spots for smaller craft. Admiral Vexithar had chosen this location carefully. 3 full battle groups waited here, over 200 warships from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers. They were spread out in a formation designed to catch the human ship in a killing box. No matter which direction it came from, it would face overwhelming firepower from multiple angles. Vexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the pride of Calthex. The dreadnought was 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons. It had fought in 20 major engagements and had never been defeated. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. These were the best officers in the Imperial Navy, veterans all. Status report, Vexthar ordered. All ships in position, Admiral, his tactical officer reported. 2nd and 3rd battle groups are holding at maximum effective range. 1st group is forward, ready to engage on your command. Fighter wings, deployed and ready. 300 craft standing by for attack runs. Vexthar nodded in satisfaction. This was textbook fleet deployment. The human ship, regardless of its capabilities, would be torn apart by the sheer volume of fire his forces could bring to bear. It was simple mathematics. One ship, even a very advanced one, could only fight in so many directions at once. Contact in 30 minutes, sir, the sensor officer announced. The target is maintaining course and speed. No attempt to evade or alter trajectory. Arrogant, Vexthar muttered. Or stupid. Maybe both. The minutes ticked by. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut. Every officer watched their screens, waiting for the moment when the human ship would appear. Vexthar had fought enough battles to recognize the feeling. The calm before the storm. Visual contact, the sensor officer called out, putting it on screen now. The main view screen flickered and then showed the human warship. For a moment, no one spoke. The Retribution was massive, 5 kilometers long, bigger than any ship in the Imperial fleet except for the rare super dreadnoughts. But size wasn't what caught everyone's attention. It was the design. Imperial ships were built for function with some aesthetic considerations. Smooth curves, decorative elements, symbols of power and prestige. The Retribution had none of that. It was all angles and edges, like something carved from a single piece of dark metal. No wasted space, no decoration. Every surface looked purposeful, designed for war and nothing else. It didn't look like a ship. It looked like a weapon. By the ancestors, someone whispered. Vexthar felt a cold sensation run down his spine. He had seen a lot of warships in his career. This was different. This was something else entirely. But he was the admiral of the Imperial fleet. He had a reputation to maintain. He couldn't show weakness in front of his crew. All ships, he announced over the fleet channel. Open fire. Maximum firepower. Destroy that vessel. Space lit up with weapons fire. Plasma lances. Bright beams of superheated matter that could melt through ship hulls. Antimatter torpedoes, each one carrying enough destructive power to level a city. Kinetic projectiles moving at incredible speeds. Railgun slugs that could punch through armor like paper. The combined firepower of 200 warships all focused on a single target. It was the kind of attack that could destroy entire fleets. Vexthar watched the view screen, waiting to see the human ship torn apart under the assault. He allowed himself a small smile. Whatever technology these humans had, it couldn't possibly withstand this. The smile died on his face. The Retribution's shields absorbed everything. Every plasma lance, every torpedo, every kinetic round. The energy washed over the ship like water over stone. Vexthar could see the shield shimmer and ripple as it dissipated the incoming fire. But it held. It more than held. The readings showed the shields weren't even at half capacity. That's impossible, the tactical officer said, his voice shaking. Nothing can withstand that much firepower, nothing. Keep firing, Vexthar ordered. Concentrate all fire on a single point. Overwhelm the shields. The Imperial fleet adjusted its targeting. All weapons focused on the forward section of the human ship. The barrage intensified. For several long seconds it seemed like it might work. The shield flickered and pulsed under the concentrated assault. Then the Retribution returned fire. The human ship didn't have visible weapon ports. No turrets, no obvious gun emplacements. For a moment, Vexthar thought maybe it couldn't fire back. Maybe it was just a heavily shielded transport or something. Then sections of the hull seemed to simply open. No hatches, no mechanical movement. The surface just flowed aside, revealing weapon systems underneath. It was like watching a living thing expose its teeth. The first weapon was something Vexthar had never seen before. A beam of pure white light that seemed to bend space itself. It struck one of the forward dreadnoughts. The ship's shields held for perhaps half a second. Then they failed. The beam continued through the ship like it wasn't even there. The dreadnought simply ceased to exist. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there. A 3-kilometer warship with a crew of 5,000. The next moment, nothing. Just empty space. What was that? Someone screamed. The Retribution fired again. And again. Each shot was different. Beams of various colors. Projectiles that moved so fast they were almost invisible. Something that looked like a miniature black hole that pulled 3 cruisers together and crushed them into a single ball of twisted metal. The Imperial fleet tried to scatter. Ships broke formation, attempting to evade. It didn't help. The human ship's targeting was perfect. Inhumanly perfect. Every shot hit. Every shot killed. Warships that had survived dozens of battles were destroyed in seconds. Deploy fighters, Vexthar ordered. Swarm them. Small targets are harder to hit. 300 Imperial fighters launched from their carriers. Fast, agile craft piloted by the best the Empire had to offer. They streaked toward the Retribution from multiple angles, weapons blazing. The human ship deployed its own countermeasures. Small drones, maybe 2 meters across, poured out of launch bays. They moved with impossible speed and precision. Each drone locked onto a fighter and engaged. The dogfight was brief and brutal. Within 90 seconds, 270 fighters were destroyed. The remaining 30 broke off and retreated, their pilots in full panic. Admiral, we've lost 40% of our fleet, the tactical officer reported. His voice was high and tight with fear. Casualties are in the tens of thousands. We need to retreat. Now. Vexthar stared at the view screen. The Retribution continued its approach, methodically destroying everything in its path. It hadn't even slowed down. All that firepower, all those ships, and they hadn't made the human vessel pause for even a moment. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vexthar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. This wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. And his fleet was on the wrong side of it. "All ships, full retreat," he ordered. "Maximum speed, get us out of here." The surviving Imperial ships broke and ran. Engines flared as they desperately tried to escape. The Retribution let them go. It could have pursued and destroyed them all, but it didn't. It simply continued, on its original course heading deeper into Imperial space. On the bridge of the Pride of Calthex, Vexthar slumped in his command chair. Around him, his crew worked in stunned silence. The engagement had lasted 14 minutes. 14 minutes to destroy one of the most powerful battle groups in the galaxy. "Get me the Emperor," Vexthar said quietly. "Priority 1. Encryption level maximum." While they waited for the connection, Vexthar pulled up the casualty reports. Over 70 ships destroyed, 30,000 dead, and they had accomplished exactly nothing. The human ship hadn't even been damaged. Not a scratch, not a dent. The holographic display activated, showing Emperor Zalthor. The Emperor was old, even by Calthex standards. His scales were gray with age, but his eyes were still sharp. He looked annoyed at being disturbed. "This had better be important, Admiral," the Emperor said. "I was in the middle of—" "We lost," Vexthar interrupted. He didn't care about protocol anymore. "Your Majesty, we engaged the human ship with 3 full battle groups, over 200 vessels. We threw everything at them. They destroyed half our fleet in less than 15 minutes. The survivors are retreating. The Retribution is continuing toward the core." The Emperor's expression changed from annoyance to confusion to disbelief. "That's impossible." "I have the recordings, Your Majesty. I'll transmit them immediately. But you need to understand what we're facing. This isn't a normal military engagement. The humans have technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Their weapons, their shields, their targeting systems. Everything is beyond anything we've encountered. One ship did this, one ship." The Emperor was silent for a long moment, his mind clearly working through the implications. When he spoke again, his voice was harder, more controlled. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "We need to negotiate. Give them what they want. Admiral Krevshan and whoever else was responsible for the New Eden incident. Hand them over. Make reparations. Whatever it takes to stop this." "Absolutely not," the Emperor snapped. "We do not bow to threats. We do not surrender our own people to foreign powers. I am the Emperor of Calthex. I will not show weakness." "Your Majesty, please," Vexthar said, and he hated the pleading tone in his own voice. "We cannot fight them. We don't have the capability. They will reach the core. They will reach Calthex Prime. And if they do, then we will destroy them there," the Emperor said firmly. "We have the planetary defense grid, the orbital fortresses, the home fleet. Let them come. We will show these humans that the Calthex Empire does not break. But Your Majesty, that is my final word, Admiral. Pull back to the secondary defensive line. Regroup. Gather all available forces. We will make our stand at the core. And we will win. Zalthor out." The hologram vanished. Vexthar sat in silence, staring at the empty space where the Emperor had been. The old fool. He didn't understand. He hadn't seen what Vexthar had seen. The casual efficiency with which the Retribution had dismantled their forces. The terrifying precision of its weapons. The absolute superiority of its technology. This wasn't going to end well. Vexthar knew that with absolute certainty. But he was a soldier. He followed orders. Even orders that would lead to disaster. Across the galaxy, news of the engagement spread like wildfire. The Galactic Council received reports from dozens of sources. Independent observers who had monitored the battle. Refugees fleeing Imperial space. Intercepted military communications. Every report said the same thing. The humans were back. And they were terrifying. In the council chambers, representatives from 100 different species watched the battle recordings in shocked silence. They saw the Retribution tear through Imperial forces like they were made of paper. They saw weapons that bent physics itself. They saw a single ship accomplish what would take entire fleets to achieve. "This changes everything," the Vraxian ambassador said quietly. "If humanity has this kind of power, if they've been hiding in the shadows all this time, we need to establish contact," another representative said. "Open diplomatic channels. Find out what they want." "They already told us what they want," the council chairman said. "Justice for New Eden. They want the people responsible for the massacre. And if the Empire won't give them up willingly, they'll take them by force. The Empire will never agree to that. The Emperor would rather die than show such weakness." "Then he may get his wish," the chairman said grimly. On board the Retribution, Captain Chen reviewed the after-action reports. The engagement had gone exactly as planned. 0 casualties on their side, minimal damage to the ship. The Imperial forces had been neutralized efficiently. But Chen felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a hollow emptiness. 30,000 beings had died in those 14 minutes. Most of them were probably just following orders, doing their duty. They hadn't personally ordered the destruction of New Eden. They were just soldiers like her crew, but they had stood in her way. They had chosen to protect the people responsible for genocide, and so they had died. "How many more, Prometheus?" she asked the ship's AI. The AI's voice was calm and measured. "Intelligence suggests 4 more defensive positions between here and the Imperial core. Total estimated forces range from 300 to 500 vessels. Additionally, the core itself has significant defensive capabilities: orbital fortresses, planetary shield generators, and the home fleet." Chen nodded slowly. "They're not going to surrender. They're going to make us fight every step of the way." "That appears to be the case, Captain." "Then we keep going," Chen said. "Plot the most direct course to Calthex Prime, maximum speed. If they want to slow us down, make them pay for every minute." "Understood, Captain." Course laid in. The Retribution accelerated, leaving the debris field of the battle behind. Ahead lay more defenders, more obstacles, more death. But Chen was committed now. There was no turning back. Not until justice was served. Not until the people who killed her daughter faced the consequences of their actions. The galaxy would remember this day, the day humanity returned. Not as the peaceful explorers of legend, not as the mysterious vanished civilization of myth, but as something else entirely, as a force of nature, as an unstoppable instrument of justice, as a species that would cross the stars themselves to protect their own. The Calthex Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humanity, thinking there would be no consequences. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The news spread across the galaxy faster than the Retribution itself. Every major news network, every information service, every back-channel communication network carried the same story. Humanity had returned, and they were carving a path straight through the Calthex Empire. After the battle at Vorgash Nebula, the Empire threw everything they had at the approaching human warship. 6 star systems became battlegrounds. Each one was supposed to be the place where the Retribution would finally be stopped. Each one became another testament to humanity's technological superiority. The first defensive line after Vorgash was a massive minefield. Imperial engineers had spent years building it. Thousands of automated mines spread across light minutes of space, each one packed with enough antimatter to vaporize a cruiser. The mines were smart, equipped with sensors and targeting systems. They could track, pursue, and detonate at the optimal distance for maximum damage. The Retribution approached at full speed. Prometheus, the ship's AI, calculated trajectories for every single mine in real time. The human vessel weaved through the field like a dancer, moving with impossible grace for something so massive. When mines got too close, point defense systems destroyed them at safe distances. The Retribution lost exactly 0 seconds navigating through what should have been an impenetrable barrier. The second line was different. Automated defense platforms, each one essentially a weapon system with engines and basic intelligence. No crew to worry about. No morale issues, just cold calculated firepower. 50,000 platforms arranged in overlapping fields of fire. They opened up simultaneously as the Retribution entered range. The platforms lasted 7 minutes. The Retribution's targeting systems were simply better, faster, more accurate. Each platform was destroyed before it could finish its targeting protocols. The human ship didn't slow down. It just fired continuously as it passed through the defensive grid, leaving a trail of debris in its wake. By the third system, the Empire had changed tactics. They combined the 4th and 7th fleets, the two largest remaining battle groups, over 300 vessels, including some of the oldest and most respected warships in Imperial service. Veterans of 100 battles, ships that had names known throughout the galaxy. The battle lasted 14 hours. It was the longest engagement so far, and the Empire managed to achieve something unprecedented. They actually forced the Retribution to slow down. Not by much, not for long, but for a few precious moments the human ship had to focus on defense rather than simply pushing forward. The Imperial forces fought with desperate courage. They threw themselves at the Retribution in waves, trying to overwhelm it through sheer numbers. Captains rammed their dying ships into the human vessels' shields, hoping to create openings for others to exploit. Fighter pilots made suicide runs knowing they wouldn't survive but hoping to do some damage. It didn't work. The Retribution's shields held. Its weapons continued to fire with mechanical precision. One by one, the Imperial ships were destroyed. By the time the battle ended, over 200 vessels had been reduced to scrap. The survivors fled. The Retribution continued on its course. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Chen watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. They were making good time. Better than expected, actually. At this rate, they would reach Calthex Prime within 2 cycles, but the cost was weighing on her. Prometheus had calculated the casualties. Over 70,000 dead across all the engagements so far. Most of them were soldiers, yes. People who had chosen military service, who understood the risks, but that didn't make it easier. Chen had spent her entire career trying to avoid unnecessary loss of life. Now she was directly responsible for more deaths than she could count. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Galactic Council." Chen raised an eyebrow. "The Council? What do they want?" "They're requesting a meeting. Neutral space. They say they want to mediate between us and the Empire." Chen was quiet for a moment, thinking. The Galactic Council was the closest thing to a central government the galaxy had. Hundreds of species, all theoretically equal members. In practice, the larger and more powerful civilizations dominated. But the Council did maintain some semblance of order and international law. "Response?" the communications officer asked. "Tell them we already stated our terms," Chen said. "The Empire knows what we want. If they're ready to comply, they can contact us directly. We're not interested in mediation. This isn't a diplomatic dispute. This is justice." The officer nodded and sent the message. Chen turned back to the view screen, watching the stars streak past as the Retribution maintained its course. Behind her, she could feel the eyes of her crew. Some of them were uncertain about her decision. Others supported it completely, but all of them had lost someone on New Eden. All of them understood why they were here. "Captain," Prometheus said, the AI's voice coming through the ship's speakers, "I have completed the analysis you requested. The Empire's defensive capabilities around Calthex Prime." "Go ahead," Chen said. "The system has 12 major orbital fortresses. Each one is equivalent to a dreadnought in terms of firepower, but with significantly better shields and armor due to not needing engines or life support. Additionally, the planet itself has a multi-layered shield system powered by fusion reactors on the surface. The home fleet consists of approximately 400 vessels, including their pride, the World-Breaker Dreadnought. Combined, the system's defensive capabilities represent approximately 40% of the Empire's total military strength." Chen nodded. She had expected something like this. The Empire would throw everything they had left at defending their homeworld. It made sense. But it also meant the final battle would be the bloodiest yet. "Assessment of our chances?" she asked. "Victory is achievable, but not without cost," Prometheus replied. "The fortresses will require sustained fire to destroy. The planetary shields will take time to penetrate. During that period, we will be exposed to concentrated fire from multiple directions. I estimate we will take damage for the first time since entering Imperial space. How much damage? Shield integrity will drop below 50% at peak engagement. Hull damage is possible but unlikely. Casualty projections for our crew range from 0 to 15%, depending on variables. Chen felt a chill run through her. Her crew, her people, the ones who had volunteered for this mission, who trusted her to bring them through safely. 15% casualties meant potentially 200 dead, 200 more families grieving, 200 more names on the memorial wall. Is there an alternative approach, she asked? Something that reduces our exposure? Yes, Prometheus said. We could engage in a fighting retreat, draw their forces out of the defensive grid, engage them in smaller groups where our advantages are more pronounced. This would extend the operation by several cycles but would reduce our risk significantly. Chen considered this. More time meant more opportunities for things to go wrong. It meant more time for the Empire to prepare, to call in reinforcements from outlying territories, but it also meant a better chance of bringing everyone home alive. Before she could respond, the communications officer spoke up again. Captain, we have another transmission. This one is from inside the Empire. It's encrypted, but the AI has decoded it. What does it say? The officer looked uncomfortable. It's from a group calling themselves the Reform Movement. They claim to be Imperial citizens who oppose the Emperor's policies. They're offering to help us. They say they have information about the defensive grid's weaknesses. Chen frowned. It could be a trap. It could, her executive officer agreed. But they're also transmitting files, technical specifications, shield frequencies, patrol schedules. If this is fake intelligence, it's very detailed fake intelligence. Prometheus, analyze the data. Cross-reference with what we already know. Look for inconsistencies or obvious traps. Working, the AI responded. Seconds passed. Analysis complete. The information appears legitimate. It matches known patterns and fills in gaps in our intelligence. The probability of this being accurate data is 87%. Chen leaned back in her chair thinking. If this was real, it changed everything. With detailed knowledge of the defensive grid, they could exploit weaknesses, reduce their exposure, minimize casualties on both sides. But if it was a trap, they could be walking into a disaster. Send a response, she said finally. Tell them we're interested, but we'll verify everything they give us independently before we act on it. And make it clear that if this is a setup, they won't like the consequences. As the message was sent, Chen stood and walked to the view screen. Outside, the stars continued their endless dance. Somewhere out there, the Empire was preparing for the final battle, fortifying their positions, planning their strategies, gathering their courage for one last stand. Chen thought about the people who would die in that battle. Imperial soldiers following orders. Her own crew doing their duty. Civilians caught in the crossfire. All because one admiral had made a terrible decision and one emperor had refused to face the consequences. She pulled up a file on her personal terminal. Images from New Eden taken before the bombardment, Sarah's last messages, videos of the colony showing normal people living normal lives, farmers, teachers, engineers, families, all gone now, all turned to ash and memory. This is for you, baby, Chen whispered to the image of her daughter. For you and everyone else they killed. I'm going to make sure they answer for what they did. I promise. Behind her, the bridge crew continued their work. They were professionals, every one of them. They knew their captain was grieving, but they also knew she would never let personal feelings compromise the mission. Chen had that reputation, fair but firm, compassionate but competent. She cared about her crew, but she never forgot the objective. Captain, the sensors officer called out. We're approaching the 4th defensive line, multiple contacts, looks like another fleet group. Chen turned from the view screen and returned to her command chair. Personal time was over. It was time to be the captain again. How many ships? 67 confirmed contacts, mix of cruisers and destroyers. They're forming a defensive sphere around a central station. What kind of station? Scanning now. It appears to be a weapons platform, massive energy signature. Possibly some kind of superweapon. Chen leaned forward. A superweapon, that was new. The Empire had apparently decided that conventional tactics weren't working. Time to try something different. Prometheus. Analysis? The station is drawing power from a nearby star, the AI reported. Energy levels are consistent with a directed plasma cannon. If fired, it would deliver approximately 10 times the destructive force of a standard antimatter weapon. However, charging time is estimated at 43 minutes. They would need to hold us in place long enough to complete the charge sequence. Can it hurt us? Chen asked. Our shields would be compromised. Hull damage is likely, but it would not be fatal unless they managed multiple direct hits. Chen nodded. The Empire was getting creative. That was good in a way. It meant they were still trying, still fighting. But it also meant they were getting desperate. Desperate enemies made mistakes, but they also fought harder because they had nothing to lose. Battle plan, she said. We take out the station first. Priority target. Ignore the ships unless they actively interfere. I want that superweapon destroyed before they can fire it. Understood, Captain. Weapons armed and ready. The Retribution accelerated toward the defensive formation. The Imperial ships immediately opened fire, throwing up a wall of plasma and missiles. The human vessel's shields absorbed the barrage with ease. It returned fire with its directed singularity weapons, each shot precisely targeted. The Imperial fleet tried to form a protective screen around the station, but they were simply too slow. The Retribution moved with incredible speed and agility for something so massive. It wove through the defensive formation, avoiding the worst of the fire while systematically destroying anything that got too close. Within 8 minutes, the Retribution had a clear shot at the station. Chen gave the order, and the human ship fired its most powerful weapon. The directed energy beam struck the station's power core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the station simply exploded, releasing all its stored energy at once. The blast was visible for light years in every direction. The surviving Imperial ships retreated immediately. There was no point in continuing the fight. Their superweapon was gone. They had nothing left that could threaten the human vessel. The battle was over almost before it began. Chen watched them go. Another defensive line broken, another obstacle cleared. The path to Calthex Prime was almost open now, just one more system, one more battle, and then they would finally reach the heart of the Empire. Damage report, she ordered. Shields at 91%. No hull damage, no casualties, all systems nominal. Good, Chen said. Maintain course. Best speed to Calthex Prime. It's time to end this. The Retribution jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the debris of yet another battle behind. Ahead lay the final confrontation, the Empire's last stand. The moment that would determine whether justice would be served or whether the powerful would once again escape the consequences of their actions. Chen had come too far to fail now. She had lost too much, sacrificed too much. One way or another, the people responsible for New Eden would answer for their crimes, even if she had to tear down an entire empire to make it happen. The Calthex Prime system was the jewel of the Empire. 3 habitable worlds orbited a stable yellow star. The primary planet, Calthex Prime itself, was home to 15 billion Imperial citizens. Massive cities covered entire continents. Orbital habitats housed millions more. Space stations and industrial platforms dotted the system. It was the beating heart of a civilization that had dominated this region of space for over 1,000 years. And now, that heart was about to be tested like never before. The Retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarms began sounding across every military installation. The human warship had arrived. The moment everyone had been dreading was finally here. Emperor Zalthor stood in the command center deep beneath the Imperial Palace. Around him, holographic displays showed the disposition of forces throughout the system. It was the most powerful concentration of military might the Empire had ever assembled in one place. 400 warships, 12 orbital fortresses, thousands of fighter craft. Planetary shields powered by fusion reactors that could withstand sustained bombardment for days. And at the center of it all, the World Breaker. The pride of the Imperial Navy, a super dreadnought 10 kilometers long, bristling with more weapons than some entire fleets. It had never been defeated in battle, It had destroyed rebel stations, pirate bases, and rival Empire outposts. It was, quite simply, the most powerful warship ever built by the Calthex Empire. Your Majesty, Admiral Vexthar said quietly. He looked tired. The running battles had taken their toll on him. The human ship has entered the system. It's maintaining a steady approach toward the planet. Zalthor nodded slowly. He was old, but his mind was still sharp. He understood what was at stake here. This wasn't just about military defeat. This was about the legitimacy of the Empire itself. If they surrendered, if they handed over their own officers to foreign powers, it would set a precedent that would destroy them. Other species would see it as weakness. Rebellions would flare up across dozens of systems. The Empire would collapse within a generation. But if they fought and lost, the result might be even worse. Send one final transmission, Zalthor ordered, to the human ship. Tell them we are willing to negotiate. Offer reparations, compensation, territory, anything except turning over Imperial citizens to foreign justice. The message was sent. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then the response came back. It was audio only, Captain Chen's voice cold and unyielding. Emperor Zalthor, we did not cross half the galaxy to negotiate. We came for justice. You have 1 hour to surrender Admiral Krevshan and the other officers responsible for the New Eden massacre. You personally sanctioned that attack. We want you as well. 1 hour. Then we will take you by force. The transmission ended. Zalthor felt anger surge through him. How dare these humans make demands of him? He was the Emperor of Calthex. His word was law across 50 systems. He bowed to no one. Your Majesty, Vexthar said carefully. Perhaps we should consider— No, Zalthor snapped. I will not surrender. I will not be taken prisoner by these upstart primitives. If they want me, they will have to kill me, and they will have to go through every loyal soldier in this system to do it. He turned to face the command staff. All forces prepare for battle. We will show the galaxy that the Calthex Empire does not break. We do not surrender. We fight. The order went out. Across the system, Imperial forces moved into position. The orbital fortresses powered up their weapons. The home fleet formed defensive formations around the planet. The Worldbreaker took up position at the center of the formation, ready to engage. But something unexpected happened. Even as the military prepared for battle, another force was stirring. The civilian population of Calthex Prime had been watching the news. They had seen the footage of the battles. They had heard the human demands. And many of them had begun asking questions. What actually happened at New Eden? Why were 12,000 civilians killed? Who authorized it? And why was the Emperor refusing to let those responsible face justice? The Imperial government had tried to control the narrative. Official statements claimed New Eden was a military target, that casualties were minimal, that the humans were terrorists making false accusations. But the evidence was mounting. Leaked documents, testimony from survivors on other worlds. Even some Imperial officers were starting to question the official story. Protests began in the capital city. Small at first, just a few hundred people, but within hours the crowds had swelled to thousands, then tens of thousands. They demanded the truth. They demanded accountability. Some even called for the Emperor to step down. On board the Retribution, Chen watched all of this unfold through their intelligence feeds. Prometheus had infiltrated the Imperial communication networks and was providing real-time updates on the situation. The AI had also done something Chen hadn't ordered but didn't stop. It had released classified documents to the public. The actual after-action reports from New Eden, complete casualty lists, video footage from the bombardment. The truth was out there now. The Empire couldn't hide it anymore. 12,000 civilians dead. Men, women, children, farmers and teachers and engineers. People who had never held a weapon, never threatened anyone. Murdered because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Murdered because an admiral decided it was more convenient to kill everyone than to sort out who was actually guilty. Captain, her executive officer said, the hour is almost up. Orders? Chen looked at the tactical display. The Imperial forces were formidable. This would be the hardest battle yet. People would die, maybe some of her crew, definitely a lot of Imperial soldiers and sailors who were just doing their duty. All weapons. Prepare to engage, she ordered. But remember the rules of engagement. Military targets only. If a ship surrenders or breaks off, let it go. No unnecessary casualties. We're not here to destroy the Empire. We're here for justice. The Retribution advanced into the system. The Imperial forces opened fire immediately. It was like nothing Chen had seen before. The sheer volume of incoming fire was incredible. Plasma lances by the hundreds, antimatter torpedoes by the thousands, kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Every weapon the Empire possessed, all focused on a single target. The Retribution's shields held, but Chen could see the power readings dropping. 70%, 60, 55. This was the real test. For the first time since entering Imperial space, they were actually being challenged. Return fire, Chen ordered. Target the orbital fortresses first. Those have the heaviest weapons. The Retribution's weapons came to life. The directed singularity beams struck the first fortress. Its shields flared and held for several seconds. Then they failed. The fortress's structure buckled under the assault. Secondary explosions rippled through it. Within 30 seconds, it was nothing but debris. But destroying one fortress took time. And in that time, the other 11 kept firing. The Imperial fleet swarmed around the Retribution, hitting it from every angle. Chen's crew worked frantically, redirecting shield power, coordinating point defense, managing heat dissipation. Shields at 40%, the tactical officer reported. Hull temperature rising, some of the outer plating is starting to buckle. Chen gritted her teeth. They were taking damage, real damage. But they were also dishing it out. Another fortress exploded, then another. The Retribution was methodically dismantling the defensive grid, one target at a time. Captain, the Worldbreaker is moving to engage, sensors reported. It's approaching from Vector 7-3 Mark II. Chen pulled up the tactical view. The massive Imperial dreadnought was indeed moving toward them. It was an impressive sight. 10 kilometers of weaponized metal, moving with surprising speed for something so large. This was the Empire's trump card. Their greatest warship. All forward weapons, target the Worldbreaker, Chen ordered. Let's see how tough it really is. The two massive warships closed on each other. For several long minutes they exchanged fire at point-blank range by space combat standards. The Worldbreaker's shields were incredibly powerful, much stronger than any other Imperial ship. It absorbed the Retribution's attacks and kept coming. But the Retribution was built for this kind of fight. Its weapons were designed to crack the toughest defenses. Slowly, methodically, the human ship wore down the Worldbreaker's shields. Chen could see the Imperial dreadnought's power levels dropping. Its shields flickering, its armor beginning to melt under the sustained assault. They're trying to ram us, the navigation officer shouted. The Worldbreaker is on a collision course. Chen's eyes widened. A ramming attack. Desperate, but potentially effective. If the Worldbreaker could slam into the Retribution at full speed, the impact might do more damage than any weapon. It was a suicide run, but it might work. Evasive maneuvers, Chen ordered. Don't let them close the distance. The Retribution's engines flared. It twisted away from the Worldbreaker's charge, moving with agility that shouldn't have been possible for something so massive. The Imperial dreadnought tried to adjust its course, but it was too slow, too committed to the ramming run. Chen saw the opening. Target their engines, disable them. I don't want to destroy that ship if I don't have to. The Retribution's weapons fired with pinpoint precision. Beams struck the Worldbreaker's engine section. Explosions rippled across the massive dreadnought's stern. Its engines sputtered and died. The ship lost momentum, drifting helplessly in space. It was still alive, still armed, but it couldn't maneuver, couldn't pursue. Chen had shown mercy. She had disabled the Empire's greatest warship without destroying it, without killing its crew. It was a message. She could have obliterated them all. But she chose restraint. The remaining Imperial forces saw what happened, saw their pride and joy crippled. Some ships continued fighting, others broke off, retreating to safer distances. The morale was breaking, the will to fight was crumbling. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from multiple Imperial ships, the communications officer reported. They're requesting permission to stand down. They don't want to continue the engagement. Chen felt relief wash over her. Granted. Any ship that withdraws will not be fired upon. Make that clear. Dozens of Imperial warships broke formation and retreated. Some headed for the outer system. Others simply powered down their weapons and held position. They were done. They had fought as hard as they could, and it hadn't been enough. There was no shame in stopping now, but not all of them stood down. About 100 ships remained, still fighting, still loyal to the Emperor. They were the true believers. The ones who would fight to the last breath rather than surrender. The battle continued for another 2 hours. It was brutal, intense, and ultimately futile for the Imperial forces. One by one, the remaining ships were destroyed or disabled. The orbital fortresses were all gone. The planetary shield generators were targeted and taken offline. Calthex Prime lay exposed. The Retribution took up position in orbit over the Imperial capital. Its weapons were trained on the palace. Chen opened a direct channel to the Emperor. "Emperor Zalthor," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Your military has been defeated. Your defenses have been destroyed. You have 2 options. Surrender yourself and the others responsible for New Eden, or I will take you by force. You have 1 hour to decide. If you attempt to flee, I will destroy your escape vessel. If you refuse, I will send ground forces to extract you. Your choice." In the command center beneath the palace, Zalthor stood in silence. Around him, his advisors were panicking. Some suggested fleeing. Others proposed a counterattack. A few quietly suggested surrender. Zalthor looked at the screens showing the streets above. The protests had turned into a full-scale uprising. Millions of citizens demanding he step down, demanding accountability. The truth about New Eden had shattered their faith in the government. "In him, Your Majesty," one of his generals said, "we still have ground forces, loyal troops. We can fortify the palace, make them pay for every meter." Zalthor shook his head slowly. "No more fighting. I've seen enough death. If I continue to resist, they'll bombard the palace. How many civilians would die? How much of the capital would be destroyed?" He looked at his advisors. "I made a mistake. New Eden was a mistake. I thought it was just another military action. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't care enough about the details. And now 12,000 civilians are dead, and an unstoppable human warship is parked over my capital." He straightened his robes. "Send a message to Captain Chen. Tell her I will surrender myself. Admiral Krevshan and the other officers involved will also be turned over, on one condition: that the civilians of this world are not harmed, that the Empire is allowed to continue, that she takes only those directly responsible." The message was sent. Chen received it and considered carefully. Her mission was justice, not revenge, not conquest. She had what she came for. The people responsible were willing to face the consequences. "Accepted," she transmitted back. "Prepare for extraction. A shuttle will arrive at the palace in 30 minutes. No guards, no weapons, just the individuals we named. Any deviation and the deal is off." 30 minutes later, a human shuttle landed in the palace courtyard. Zalthor walked out, followed by Admiral Krevshan and 71 other officers and officials. They boarded the shuttle without resistance. It lifted off and returned to the Retribution. As soon as the prisoners were secured, Chen gave the order to withdraw. The Retribution's mission was complete. Justice would be served. The galaxy would see that actions had consequences, that even emperors were not above the law. On Calthex Prime, the citizens watched the human warship depart. Some cheered, others stood in stunned silence. Their emperor was gone, their military was shattered, but they were alive. The humans could have destroyed them all, but they had chosen mercy. Within hours, a provisional government formed, reformists who had opposed the emperor's policies. They immediately reached out to the Galactic Council, requesting mediation and assistance. They promised accountability, transparency, a new beginning for the Calthex Empire. The siege of the Imperial core was over. But the real work was just beginning. Justice had to be served. The galaxy had to heal, and humanity had to decide what role they would play in this new era. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session on the neutral world of Vexera. Representatives from over 200 species filled the massive chamber. It was the largest gathering in council history. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. The trial of an emperor. Zalthor and the other prisoners were brought into the chamber in restraints. No one had ever seen an emperor treated this way. It was shocking, disturbing, but also somehow right. The laws that governed ordinary citizens had to apply to the powerful as well. Otherwise, what was the point of having laws at all? Captain Maria Chen stood at the witness podium. She had been asked to give testimony about what happened at New Eden, about what she had found, about why humanity had taken such drastic action. She took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was steady, but everyone in the chamber could hear the pain underneath. New Eden was a farming colony, 12,000 people, human settlers who wanted a simple life, far from the complications of galactic politics. They grew crops. They raised families. They built schools and homes and communities. They weren't soldiers. They weren't criminals. They were just people trying to live their lives. She pulled up holographic images. The colony before the attack. Farms stretching to the horizon. Children playing in parks. Markets full of life and color. Then the images changed. Orbital bombardment footage. Plasma strikes turning everything to ash. Cities vaporized in seconds. The land scorched and blackened. Admiral Krevshan decided that the most efficient way to eliminate a handful of rebel fighters was to destroy the entire colony. He didn't try to evacuate civilians. He didn't give warnings. He just opened fire. 12,000 people died in less than an hour. My daughter was one of them. Sarah Chen. She was 23 years old. She was a teacher. She taught children how to read. Chen's voice cracked slightly, but she continued. Emperor Zalthor was presented with the operation plan. He signed off on it without question, without review. He didn't care about the details. He didn't ask how many civilians would die. He just approved it and moved on to the next item on his agenda. She looked directly at Zalthor. The old emperor met her gaze but said nothing. This wasn't a military operation. It was murder. Mass murder! And it was done casually, without thought, without remorse. That's why we came. That's why we crossed half the galaxy. Because if we don't stand up for our own, if we don't demand justice when our people are killed, then what are we? What kind of civilization would we be? The chamber was silent when she finished. Many of the representatives were visibly moved. Some were crying. Even species that had never met humans before understood the weight of what Chen was saying. This wasn't about one species versus another. This was about right and wrong, about justice and accountability. The council chairman, a Vraxian named Torvel, spoke next. Emperor Zalthor, you are accused of sanctioning the murder of 12,000 civilians. How do you plead? Zalthor stood slowly. His scales looked duller than they had before. He had aged visibly in the short time since his capture. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. Guilty, he said. The words seemed to echo through the chamber. I am guilty. Not because I intended to kill civilians. Not because I woke up that day planning mass murder. But because I didn't care enough to ask questions. I trusted my military advisors. I signed off on operations without reviewing the details. I was lazy, careless, and 12,000 beings died because of it. He looked at Chen. Captain Chen, I cannot undo what was done. I cannot bring back your daughter or anyone else who died that day. All I can offer is this. I am sorry, truly deeply sorry. It is not enough. It will never be enough. But it is all I have. Chen felt tears on her cheeks. She hadn't expected that. An apology. Genuine remorse. It didn't change anything. Sarah was still dead. New Eden was still destroyed. But it was something. More than she had expected from an emperor. The trial continued for days. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. The full scope of what happened at New Eden was laid bare for the galaxy to see. When it finally ended, the council reached its verdict. Guilty. All 73 defendants were found guilty of war crimes. The sentence was imprisonment. Not execution. Chen had argued for that specifically. She wanted them to live, to spend years thinking about what they had done, to face the consequences every single day. Death would be too easy, too quick. The prisoners were transferred to a human penal facility, a place where they would be kept secure but treated humanely. Chen had made sure of that too. She wouldn't become the monster she was fighting against. Justice meant following proper procedures, treating even criminals with basic dignity. After the trial, the Galactic Council held another session. This time the topic was humanity itself. For centuries, humans had been shadows, myths, legends that most people didn't believe. Now they were very real, very powerful, and very much a force that couldn't be ignored. Chairman Torval addressed the assembly. We have witnessed something unprecedented. A single human warship crossed Imperial space and defeated one of the galaxy's major powers. They did it without conquering, without occupation. They came for justice and left when justice was served. The Council must decide how to respond. There was much debate. Some species were afraid of humanity's power. Others were impressed by their restraint. Finally, a proposal was made. Invite humanity to join the Galactic Council. Give them a voice in galactic affairs. Recognize them as equals. The vote was overwhelming. 347 species voted in favor. Only 12 voted against. Humanity was formally invited to join the Council. Chen received the invitation on board the Retribution. She stood on the bridge reading the message. Her executive officer looked at her expectantly. What will you tell them, Captain? Chen thought about it. Humanity had been watching the galaxy for so long, learning, preparing, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Maybe this was it. Maybe it was time to step out of the shadows, to join the community of civilizations, to help build something better. Send a response, she said. Tell them we accept. But make it clear that we're joining on our own terms. We'll participate. We'll cooperate, but we won't be pushed around. We won't allow injustice to go unchallenged. The galaxy just learned what happens when you attack humanity. Let's make sure they remember that lesson. The message was sent. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. Humanity was joining the Galactic Council. A new era was beginning, an era where the old rules might not apply anymore, where even the powerful would have to answer for their actions. Chen ordered the Retribution to plot a course back to human space. But as they prepared to jump, something appeared on their sensors. Multiple contacts, dozens of them, all human ships, the entire fleet, emerging from the edges of known space. Prometheus, what are they doing here? Chen asked. They're taking up positions along the border of known space, the AI reported, establishing a presence. Letting everyone know we're here, that we're watching. Chen nodded slowly. It made sense. The Retribution had gotten everyone's attention, but one ship, no matter how powerful, could only be in one place at a time. The fleet showing themselves sent a different message. Humanity wasn't just one warship. They were hundreds, maybe thousands, an entire civilization with technology and capabilities that outmatched anything the galaxy had seen. It's a deterrent, Chen said. A reminder. We came for justice this time. We were restrained. Professional. But if someone decides to test us again, if someone else attacks human civilians, they need to know what will happen. The fleet makes that clear. She received a communication from Fleet Command. Orders to return home. To rest, to recover. The Retribution had done its job. Now it was time for diplomats and politicians to do theirs. To build relationships. To establish trade. To integrate humanity into galactic society. But before they left, Chen had one more thing to do. She plotted a course to the New Eden system. It was a detour. It would add several days to their journey. But she didn't care. She needed to go back. To see the place where it all started, where her daughter had died. The Retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. New Eden hung in space ahead of them. The planet was still scarred from the bombardment. The atmosphere was slowly recovering, but it would take decades before anything could live there again. Chen stood at the view screen looking at the dead world. So much life. So much potential, all gone. But it wouldn't be forgotten. Plans were already underway to rebuild, to create a memorial, to ensure that future generations would know what happened here and why it mattered. I did it, Sarah, Chen whispered. I got justice for you. For all of you. They're going to pay for what they did. And the galaxy is going to remember. No one will forget New Eden. No one will forget what happens when you attack humanity. She pulled out a small data chip. It contained all of Sarah's messages, videos, photos. Everything Chen had left of her daughter. She held it close for a moment, then carefully placed it in a memorial capsule. The capsule was loaded into a launch tube. Launch, Chen ordered. The capsule shot toward the planet. It would land near the site of the old colony. It would remain there as a marker, a testament, a promise that the dead would not be forgotten. Chen turned away from the view screen. Her eyes were wet, but she felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in months. The mission was complete. Justice had been served. Sarah and the others could rest now, knowing their deaths had meant something, that their sacrifice had changed the galaxy. Set course for home, she ordered. Maximum speed. I think we've earned a rest. The Retribution's engines flared. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving New Eden behind. But across the galaxy, hundreds of other human warships remained. Silent sentinels on the borders of known space, watching, waiting, making sure everyone remembered the lesson. Humanity protects its own. Attack us and there will be consequences. Justice will be served, no matter how long it takes, no matter how far we have to travel, no matter who we have to fight. The Calthex Empire began its reformation. The provisional government worked with the Galactic Council to implement new laws, new protections for civilians, new accountability for military actions. They used New Eden as a case study, a warning, a reminder of what could happen when power went unchecked. Other empires and nations watched nervously. They reviewed their own policies, their own military procedures. No one wanted to be the next target of human justice. The galaxy had seen what one human warship could do. No one wanted to find out what the entire fleet was capable of. The Galactic Council created new laws, protections for civilians in wartime, mandatory reviews for military operations, independent investigations for alleged war crimes. They called them the New Eden Accords. Everyone knew what they really were. The price of awakening humanity. The cost of learning that some species bite back. Months later, the first human embassy opened on Vexara. Ambassador Rebecca Torres stood at the entrance, watching representatives from hundreds of species arrive for the opening ceremony. Some came out of curiosity, others out of respect. A few came out of fear, but they all came. Chairman Torvel approached her. The Vraxian looked tired but satisfied. Ambassador Torres, welcome to the council. I hope this is the beginning of a long and productive relationship. Torres smiled. So do I, Chairman. Humanity doesn't want to be the galaxy's police force. We don't want to conquer or dominate. We just want to live in peace, to trade, to learn, to contribute. But if anyone threatens us or our allies, they need to understand what will happen. We showed restraint with the Calthex Empire. We could have destroyed them. Instead, we sought justice. Accountability. That's what humanity stands for. Torvel nodded slowly. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Power must be balanced with responsibility. Strength must be tempered with wisdom. I believe humanity will help us remember that. They walked into the embassy together, surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy. A new era was truly beginning. An era where justice mattered, where accountability wasn't optional, where even the powerful had to answer for their actions. And somewhere in deep space, the Retribution sat in dock for repairs and maintenance. Captain Maria Chen had retired. She had done what she set out to do. Now it was time for others to carry on the work. Younger officers, diplomats, people who would build on the foundation she had created. But the ship remained ready. Its weapons maintained. Its systems updated. Its crew trained. Because the galaxy was a dangerous place. And sometimes justice required more than words. Sometimes it required action. Decisive, overwhelming action. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage. They had shown their strength, their technology, their willingness to fight for what was right. But they had also shown restraint, mercy, the ability to stop when the objective was achieved. The galaxy would never forget the Retribution. The warship that crossed an empire to deliver justice. The symbol of humanity's return. The proof that some species, when pushed, push back harder than anyone expected. In the end, the message was clear. Humanity protects its own. No mercy given to those who attack the innocent. But justice, real justice, always delivered. Not revenge. Not conquest. Just accountability. Just consequences. The galaxy had learned to respect that. To fear it, perhaps, but mostly to respect it. Because in a universe full of predators and prey, humanity had proven they were something else entirely. They were protectors, guardians, avengers when necessary, but always on the side of justice. New Eden would never be forgotten. The 12,000 dead would be remembered. Their sacrifice had changed everything, had forced humanity out of the shadows. had created a better, more just galaxy. And somewhere in whatever afterlife existed, maybe Sarah Chen and the others could rest, knowing their deaths had meant something, that their lives had mattered. That humanity had crossed the stars themselves to make sure justice was served. No mercy given. Justice delivered. Humanity's watch had begun,